And next up, I am excited to introduce you to Belen Grand. Hopefully we can pull her away from the launch and bring her up onto the stage. Sorry to take you away from everything. Thanks for making time for us. Well, Belen is the author of Family Matters, Making the Right Financial Decisions with Your Filipino Families. Belen, tell us about this book.
This book empowers many Filipino nurses who are working all over the world, as well as overseas Filipino workers, so that they can make the right financial decision with their families.
And why was this important to you? Why did you choose this book?
Well, our culture is really helping each other. We want to uplift everybody back home in the Philippines as well as our families here. But because of cultural restrictions sometimes, it prevents us from really doing what is right. Sometimes we become so charitable that we need to learn to have boundaries. And those boundaries are important. And a lot of times people think that just giving and giving is the right answer. There has to be a boundary as well as goals when you give to your families, which is good for you as well as for the person who's helping.
I love that. It can be a win-win even if you can't
Yes.
see that right now. Well, Bridget is asking a question. Bridget is from Sacramento, California. So hello, Bridget. And I'm going to ask this to you. She says, how do I overcome my lack of confidence? Was confidence ever a challenge for you? And what advice would you give Bridget?
Yeah, confidence is something that you can work on. And, a lot of times we have our blocks to ourselves, how we can be better and how you can be more confident. Of course, there's a lot of books about confidence, but sometimes there are subconscious blocks that could also limit you from becoming who you really are.
Did you have questions about your own confidence?
Of course, being the only Filipino, I was the first Filipina nurse practitioner at the University of Miami. I was the first transplant coordinator at the University of Miami. And there are challenges, but I told myself that if others can, so can you. And my mother always used to tell me, if you have the will, you have the way.
I love that. So you are actually our first Filipino, although we now have somebody else in the program.
Okay.
So you're not our last, I already know. Mark, I'm waving at you, man.
All right.
So I have a question for you about how the experience of being in a group impacted your confidence, your clarity, your sense of community. Most people think of writing a book as a solitary sport, and we like to do it in groups of 10 here. So how was being with a community, how did that change the experience or affect you?
It was awesome. The reason is because initially, as Angela knows, I was very quiet. I just wanted to learn from everybody. Now, everybody's different. Some people, they ask questions immediately. I'm the type that I want to make sure I read everything first and I listen from everybody. Then later on became a little bit more confident, and then I was able to assert myself. And it's great to learn from everybody because sometimes a lot of times they may have, your question may be already asked by the other person before you, and they may have already done what they're supposed to do. So, that makes a big difference.
So the other interesting thing about your book that I want to share with you guys, if you're thinking about a book, in the old style of publishing, and publishing goes back 350 years, and for 340 of those years, the goal for a book was to make the topic as wide and broad as possible. And so there are obviously lots of immigrants in lots of countries, not just the U.S., that send money back home from wherever they are. And while you knew that you wanted to write about this topic of being able to make the right financial decisions for yourself and your family as an expat, what I think is really instructive for people listening is we could have gone really broad with this. We could have written a book for anyone who's an expat who sends money home anywhere, anytime. And we actually took that down to focus on the community that you know most, which isn't just Filipinos, but actually Filipino nurses. Very specific. By the way, if you know and love a Filipino nurse, send them the link to this book. You will see it on your screen. So go ahead and do that. So was that hard for you to narrow that down? And why do you think that choice of going so specific is one that will help your audience?
I think it's really good because of course, having a mentor like you who has all the experience, and nailing the ideal reader, knowing your ideal reader, you're able to connect to them emotionally, and that helps a lot in focusing your thoughts, your writing process, so that you could really know what do you think the ideal reader, which is the Filipino nurses and overseas Filipino workers, what is their problem? How can I solve their problem? How can I connect to them? How can I help them focus? And I wanted also to mention that in this process of, with my book, it's not really just about abundance in finances. It's really more about being abundant in even your love relationship. The strategies that I've mentioned here in this book, they are very helpful in improving your relationships, love relationships with your families, with your community, and so that you can really make the contribution to the world of what you really want to do or what you were born to do.
I love that. What I think is so powerful is that the broader message that would help everyone is most of us on this stage don't have millions of dollars to throw into marketing to reach everyone, but we can all be like that drop in the ocean that ripples out. And so when you reach the people you know most, you know their struggle, you've been there, you've actually climbed this mountain, then you can pull up the others behind them, they pull up the others behind them, and we create these waves of self-love and boundaries and so many of the things in your book. So I think even if you are not a Filipino nurse, you are going to love this book, especially if you have some challenges with people you love and respect, family members who you want to do right by and be able to make the right decision for yourself and still figure out how to do that in a way that's right for your family. So Belen Grand, let's show everybody your book because it's such a great cover. This is Belen's book. I'll give that to you. Congratulations. You can get Family Matters, Making the Right Financial Decision with Your Filipino Families by Belen Grand on Amazon right now. Go do it. Great job, Belen. Thank you.